I would like to take you, if I may, through the origins of the history of needle felting. This is a bit of a different video for me, but I was doing a bit of research and I thought it was really fascinating to learn where needle felting came from. So, buckle up, let's have a talk about this. Felt as a textile has been around since ancient times. In fact, it's often described as our first manufactured textile. It's been around so far that its creation and origins are lost into the realms of history. I've heard some interesting stories about how it was created, myths and legends about how it was created, including some persecuted people fleeing stuffed their sandals with some wool to prevent blisters, and by the time they'd got where they were going, not only were they free and blister free, but also with the sweat and heat and friction, they'd created themselves a pair of natty socks. Or that Noah padded out the inside of his ark with sheep's wool, and then by the time they'd been sailing away for so long with all the animals toileting and sleeping and walking over the wool, they'd created a rather stinky fleece all in the bottom of the ark. Or that Mongol tribes used to pad out their horses' saddles with some fleece to prevent them getting saddle sores, rubbing from the saddle, and then after a long day's riding, similar to the socks with the heat and the friction, they created little felt blankets basically. But felt has been created for way longer than this. We do know because in the Copenhagen Museum there is actually a well-preserved felt hat from the early Bronze Age. So we've been creating felt as a textile for at least 4,000 years. And felt as a textile has been used for a great number of things. In waterproof coverings over wagons and in yurts, in various types of clothing, in musical instruments, and even in heavy industry. But creating it was a heavy, hard process, usually involving lots of water and friction and heat and a whole lot of weight, because a big piece of wool weighs quite a lot. So it made sense that by the 1950s we had industrialized this process and made it easier. And how we did this was by using large plates with hundreds of small barbed needles in them, and so when these plates lowered, they matted the fibres together, creating a flat strip of felt. In the 1980s, Eleanor Stanwood was making wonderful blankets with beautiful stamp designs on the cover and filled with bats of fleece, which is an excellent insulating filling for duvets. And she also found that if she wet felted these bats, then it could make lovely thin scarves, and if on top of that she added other colours to it, then it can be beautiful textile works of art. So she got hold of a small scale, one of these felting plates, so that she could take her wet felted textiles and add the different colours on and needle felt them and turn them into the felt with the plates to create beautiful dimension and artistry to her textiles. And her partner David discovered that he could use one of these individual needles off of the plate and scraps of wool that were lying around to make 3D felted pieces. I've seen stories that talks about how he used to just felt layers and layers of different colours into balls and then cut them open to make awesome geodes that he would use for earrings and necklaces. After a while, they taught this method to their friend Alea Talpai, I hope I got that name even slightly right, and she further refined the process into the needle felting that we know today. And she published a book, The Felting Needle from Factory to Fantasy, which I think is an awesome sounding name, which brought this to the attention of more people and started off. And in 2007, I started needle felting. I found Alea's book on Amazon and I will link to it. However, at £58, it's probably better as a kind of historical piece, but I'll link to everything I found. She also has a blog which has links to a cheaper version of her book, but the website hasn't been updated in a good number of years, so I'm not entirely sure if these links are working. If anyone tries them and they do work, let me know, but I don't know if these are working. But I'll link to all the websites I found so you can get to know the creators of needle felting. I thought this was fascinating how it's gone from the most ancient of textiles to one of the newest forms of art. Thank you so much for joining me. See you next time.